The leather seats of the first-class lounge had never felt so cold. Victoria Chen stared at the departure board through designer sunglasses she didn't need indoors, watching her private jet's scheduled takeoff time blink into the past. 15 years of perfectly orchestrated travel, of never waiting for anyone or anything, and she'd missed her flight because of a last-minute board meeting that couldn't wait. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who'd built a billion-dollar empire on efficiency had just been undone by her own relentless schedule. "Ma'am, we can get you on the next commercial flight," her assistant said through the phone, her voice tight with the kind of panic that came from disappointing someone who didn't tolerate mistakes. "It leaves in 40 minutes. Middle seat in economy." "I'm so sorry, it's all that's available." Victoria closed her eyes. Economy. Middle seat. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. 20 minutes later, she found herself squeezing past passengers in row 32, her Hermes bag catching on every armrest, her tailored Armani suit drawing stares in a sea of hoodies and jeans. The window seat held a sleeping teenager with headphones, and in the aisle sat a man who looked like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. He stood quickly when he saw her, nearly hitting his head on the overhead bin. Sorry," he mumbled, stepping into the aisle. His jeans were worn but clean, his flannel shirt wrinkled, and there was a stain on his sneakers that looked like grape juice. Everything about him screamed exhaustion and worry. Victoria slid into the middle seat, her knees hitting the seat in front of her, and suddenly understood why people complained about legroom. She pulled out her phone, ready to disappear into emails, into the familiar world where she had control. "Rough day?" the man asked as the plane pushed back from the gate. She glanced at him, ready with the polite dismissal she'd perfected over years of unwanted conversation. But something in his eyes stopped her, a kindness that seemed genuine, not opportunistic. He wasn't trying to network or impress her. He looked like someone who understood rough days intimately. "You could say that," she replied, surprising herself. "You." He laughed, a sound that held more exhaustion than humor. "Rough year, more like." He extended his hand. "Marcus Williams." Victoria. She left off her last name, savoring the anonymity. As the plane climbed through the clouds, Marcus pulled out a worn notebook, and Victoria noticed his hands trembling slightly as he wrote. Numbers. Columns of numbers, crossed out and rewritten. "Budget?" she asked, then immediately regretted the intrusion. He looked at her, something vulnerable crossing his face. "Medical bills. My daughter, Emma, she's 7. She needs surgery for her heart condition, and even with insurance." He shook his head. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this. I just crunch these numbers over and over, hoping they'll somehow add up differently." Victoria felt something crack in her chest, a sensation so unfamiliar it took her a moment to recognize it as genuine emotion breaking through years of practiced detachment. "What kind of surgery?" And Marcus talked. Not because he wanted something, he still didn't know who she was, but because he was a father who'd been carrying an impossible weight alone for too long. He told her about Emma, who loved dinosaurs and wanted to be a paleontologist despite never having the energy to run and play like other kids. About his wife who'd left when the medical bills started piling up, when the reality of a sick child became too much. About working 2 jobs, selling everything that wasn't nailed down, and still coming up $60,000 short for the surgery that could give his daughter a normal life. "The worst part," Marcus said, his voice cracking, "is telling her we have to wait. She's so brave, you know. She tells me it's okay, that she doesn't mind waiting. But I see it in her eyes, she's scared. She's 7 years old and she's scared she might not get to grow up." Victoria's phone buzzed in her hand. Another email, another crisis that needed her immediate attention, another $1 million deal waiting for her approval. She looked at the screen, then at Marcus, then back at the numbers in his notebook. The math was simple, brutal. He'd need 3 more years of saving to afford the surgery. 3 years a 7-year-old girl didn't have. "Tell me about her," Victoria said, putting her phone away. "Tell me everything." So he did. He showed her pictures, a little girl with her father's eyes and a smile that could break your heart, holding up crayon drawings of T-Rexes, wearing a stethoscope and pretending to be a doctor. Marcus talked about her favorite books, her terrible jokes, the way she hummed when she was nervous. He talked about tucking her in every night and promising her everything would be okay, then lying awake wondering if he was lying to her. "She made me a Father's Day card last year," Marcus said, pulling a laminated piece of construction paper from his wallet with the care of someone handling a priceless artifact. It says, "My daddy is my hero because he never gives up. But I feel like that's all I do, give up. Give up on getting her the surgery now, give up on giving her a normal childhood, give up on." "Stop," Victoria said, her voice sharp enough that the teenager in the window seat stirred. She softened her tone. "You're doing everything humanly possible. That's not giving up. That's love." The flight attendant came by with drinks. Victoria ordered 2 coffees and handed one to Marcus. They sat in silence for a moment, and she found herself thinking about her own childhood, about the father who'd worked himself to death building the company she now ran, about the ruthless efficiency she'd cultivated to honor his legacy. When had she last thought about anything beyond quarterly returns and market shares? "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "What do you do? You seem like someone important." Victoria smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "I solve problems. Must be nice, having problems that can be solved. You'd be surprised how trivial most of them are." She looked at him, at this man who'd bared his soul to a stranger on a plane, and made a decision that had nothing to do with business sense and everything to do with something she thought she'd lost years ago. "Marcus, what if I told you I could help?" He shook his head immediately. "I wasn't telling you this to ask for money. I don't take handouts. Sometimes you need to tell someone, you know. Someone who doesn't look at you with pity. It's not a handout. Consider it an investment." She pulled out her phone, opened her banking app. "I invest in potential. Your daughter wants to be a scientist. The world needs more scientists. Think of it as a scholarship for her future education. I'm just front-loading it." Marcus stared at her. "I don't understand. What's the name of the hospital?" "The surgeon." "I can't. You don't even know us." "I know enough. I know a father who works 2 jobs for his daughter. I know a little girl who makes Father's Day cards and dreams of dinosaurs. I know that $60,000 means everything to you and it's." She stopped herself before saying it was pocket change. "Because it wasn't. Not to him. It's something I can do. So let me do it." The next 20 minutes were a blur of tears and protests and Victoria making phone calls. To her assistant, to the hospital, to her accountant. Marcus kept saying no, kept saying he couldn't, until Victoria finally said, "Your daughter made you a card that called you her hero. Let me help you live up to that. Not for me, for her." When the plane landed, Marcus had the surgery scheduled for the following week, fully paid. He also had Victoria's business card and a promise that when Emma grew up and became that paleontologist, she'd come work for Chen Enterprises' research division. "Why?" Marcus asked as they stood to deplane, his eyes red from crying. "Why would you do this?" Victoria thought about her private jet, her corner office, her empty penthouse apartment. She thought about the last time anyone had called her a hero. "Because you reminded me why I started my company in the first place. It wasn't to make money. It was to solve problems that matter." 3 months later, Victoria received a package at her office. Inside was a crayon drawing of a T-Rex with a heart on its chest, signed, Emma Williams, future paleontologist. There was a note from Marcus. She ran today. Actually ran. "Thank you for giving me back my hero card." Victoria framed the drawing and hung it behind her desk, where she could see it during every board meeting, every conference call, every moment she needed to remember what success really looked like. And she never flew private again.